Welcome to the People Strategy Forum podcast. We're a show that guides leaders on how to elevate the workplace. And we believe that people are at the heart of successful organizations. So, a team member's well being, rewards, career development, it's all essential to a happy and highly productive workforce overall. So, this show discusses the practical and effective leadership strategies for top executives, senior, senior professionals, and talent managers. So, first, I would love to take you through and introduce you to our host today. We have Howard Niswitz on the call. He's a seasoned compensation advisor with strategic HR consulting, over 30 years of experience. And so Howard and I have worked together at Barclays Global, and so I'm glad to have him here on the call today. Then also we have Shar Miller, and Shar is a strategic skills consultant at the Strategic Thinking Institute. And she's also a talent management strategist and career and entrepreneurial transformation coach. And so she helps those people start businesses and live the lives that they need to. I know Shar is an avid traveler and a bit of a global nomad herself, and she loves starting up successful organizations. So welcome,
Thank
Shar.
you. Thank you, Sam. My pleasure.
Yes. And then today we're going to be diving deep into the Vanguard Edge, and it's how to build a high performing culture. And so we're thrilled to have Bryan Howard, who is a CEO of Mercury Performance Group, join us today. He has over 2 decades of expertly navigating the complex terrain of organization challenges. And Bryan has earned the nickname as the fixer among elite business circles. And so Bryan, that almost sounds like something out of Sopranos, but I'm sure you've earned it. So Bryan's proactive approach has reshaped numerous companies by aligning their teams and enhancing performance before crises even have a chance to emerge. And so his insights are further distilled in the best-selling book, The Vanguard Edge. And it's a great read. It has some crucial information for anyone eager to build a thriving, high-performing workplace. And so today he shares strategies that not only resolve but also preempt the people problems that can derail business success. So join us in this episode of the People Strategy Forum as we uncover the foundational elements of what creates a dynamic corporate culture and to really enhance your business strategy going forward with Bryan Howard. So welcome, Bryan.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So as we typically, as a tradition in getting started here on the People Strategy Forum, we talk about basically, how did you get to what you're doing today? I mean, what is your path and your story, and how you help your clients?
Sure. So a long journey that started in operations. So I call it the tale of two careers. Basically, the first part of my career was all about operations. I worked in retail. I worked in the staffing environment, not in HR at all, but in operations and sales. So I spent a lot of time on the management and leadership side of the business. And then about halfway through my career, I got the opportunity to do a program called Florida Rebuilds here in the state of Florida where I live. And it was the product of many hurricanes in a row in Florida. I don't know if you remember seeing the news where they would fly over Florida and you would see nothing but blue tarps on tops of roofs. And so there just weren't enough people in Florida to clean up the mess and rebuild the homes and do those kinds of things. So I ended up working with a local county and then the state of Florida to create a training program for construction workers, which was the staffing company that I was in at the time. And I loved it. So I got the bug, and once I got the bug, I couldn't let it go anymore. So the next thing I know, I moved from operations into human resources, specifically learning and development, and then my career just went on from there. And I've led every department in human resources at some point in time, including the the chief people officer role. And then I told my wife I wanted to retire early, and it turns out retirement was just starting my own company. And so instead of working for someone else, now I work for everyone else, or whoever needs our help, which has been a really nice way to transition. So that's how I got where I am today, and I love what I do. We have two purposes at Mercury Performance Group. The first is for our clients and customers. We solve people problems, and then our purpose in life is to help people reach their full potential, and that is not just employees, but also children who will become employees one day. So we're really rooted in our own mission and purpose as well. Can't hear you, Sam.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. So it's funny that you mentioned about retirement and it basically now instead of having a single client, now you have tons of them, and I can resonate with that for sure. But the one of the things that you did in starting up your new business is writing a book. And so what drove you to that, and who you're trying to reach with that book?
So one of the things that I've seen over my entire career, not just in my HR career, but over my entire career, was that companies have a really hard time building high performing teams. And teams are really the infrastructure that drive company performance. And you can say that individuals do, but more and more every day, teams are becoming more important than the individual. And so what I wanted to do was put together a book that gave people the 6 steps that they needed to build a high performing team in their organization. And so this provides a blueprint. This book provides a blueprint for doing that. There's actually 6 chapters in the book that are, I call them the 6 M's. And it starts with the foundation of building the correct mindset to have a high performing team, and then developing a mission. And then, and you all will get this one for sure, is developing a model with which to run your company, which includes compensation, recognitions, and rewards for your employees and for the team. And then some messaging. Interestingly enough, there was a story out a while back. Everybody pretty much knows this, that Disney bought Pixar. And when Disney bought Pixar, the reason that they bought Pixar was because Pixar had a team within their unit called the Brain Trust. And everything that happened at Pixar, all the decisions that were made, all of the thinking about how to build stories, movies, things that resonated with consumers, all of that went through the Brain Trust. And so Disney didn't buy the animation at Pixar. What they bought was the Brain Trust, the team, or what I call a super team or a Vanguard team, and asked them to come to Disney and instill all of that idealism into Disney animation, which they did. So that's very important. And Pixar messaged that. That's how they were purchased, was they said, hey, we're the team that does this. And Disney says, if we want the team, we have to buy the whole company. And they did. And then, of course, every company needs metrics. People need to know where they're going, and they need to know what good looks like. And then finally, the last chapter is more or less a bonus chapter about multipliers. And multipliers are how, once you've built a Vanguard team, you can seek out other Vanguard teams and work together to amplify your business results. And so that could be cross-marketing or any number of collaboration opportunities. So that's the basics of the book. Foundationally, though, mindset is the very beginning of it. And that's also my favorite chapter of the book.
You know, it's interesting. I think that a lot of leader and business owner success really surrounds mindset. I mean, we're all human, and we go through these ups and downs, and it's tough to have that maintain that true north all the time, and that positive mindset. And so, how do you coach your leaders to keep that mindset in focus?
Most of the leaders that I run across, oddly enough, have a good mindset. So that Carol Dweck, a long time ago, came out with the idea of mindset, and that there are people with fixed mindsets and people with growth mindsets. And the people with growth mindsets are typically the most successful because they believe that no matter what they set out to do, they can do it. And so the main piece of building a Vanguard team is having the entire team have that growth mindset. And you have to work really hard to shift some people there, because some people do feel like they have a fixed set of skills and that they're not capable of growth beyond that fixed set of skills. So for leaders, it's really just about showing them what's possible and then having their team buy into that. And in order to do that, I created a tool that's in the book. The book's about 150 pages total. You can read the whole thing in about 2 hours. There's a companion website that goes with it that has about that much content on it. Again, that's free with the book. But in the first few pages of the book, I introduce a tool called the Vanguard Foundation Framework. And that is all about building a high-performing culture, and it's based around mindset. And that's a 6-part tool as well, with trust and safety as the foundation. That's how I start helping leaders develop a growth mindset.
So yeah, it looks like you a lot of the elements that you have in your book are around those 6 steps and so forth. So it's easy to remember. So let's dive into those 6 building blocks that you were talking about, building a high performing team.
Sure. So just to cover them quickly, the 6 in a row, and then I'll talk a little bit about each one. Is the 6 building blocks, starting with the foundation, is trust and safety is the first building block. And without that building block, everything else falls flat. And it's important to note that trust is not an event that happens. You can't go on a retreat with your team and build trust during a retreat where everybody lines up and falls into each other's arms. It just doesn't work that way. Trust and safety is an ongoing endeavor. It's something that never ends. The next building block, once you have trust and safety built, is role clarity. And I talked a little while ago about people understanding what it is they do and what good looks like. And role clarity is not only about an employee understanding what they do, but also understanding how their role impacts the entire organization. So organizations are a collection of systems, and employees create inputs or create outputs, and those outputs become inputs in other parts of the organization. So it's super important that employees understand, or team members understand, what their role is, but also how it affects the rest of the organization. The next building block is shared vision and purpose. And shared vision and purpose is exactly what it sounds like. What is the company trying to do, and why are they trying to do it? The next building block is collaborative tools and processes. And some companies are really good at this, and some companies are really bad at it. And so you have to have a way for people to interact, not only within a team, but also within the company, and then external as well. The last 2 building blocks, in the first 6 are important and foundational. The last 2 are how you stay a high-performing culture. And the first one of those is continuous learning and adaptability. So it's been said that companies who aren't learning anymore are actually dying, or atrophy sets in. And so you have to continue learning. And then finally, and this one is super important, it's the last one, but not the least, is collective reward and recognition. And the reason I say collective reward and recognition is when you reward things, you get more of it. So if you reward behaviors, you get more of those behaviors. So if you reward individual performance, you get a lot of individual performance. If you reward team performance, or collective rewards and recognition, then you get a lot of team performance. And ultimately that is more important for the company's overall success. So those are the 6 building blocks of the Vanguard Foundation framework. And once you get those right, you will have achieved chapter 1 of this book, which is the chapter on mindset.
So let's dive a little bit more into the trust and safety aspect, the first step of the 6 steps. And so when you think about building trust, what is the first steps that a leader should take to ensure that they're establishing trust overall?
So the first thing I tell leaders, and this one's difficult for leaders to grasp, but it is the single most important thing they can do, is be reliable. And so I say that consistency builds trust. And of course, it has to be good consistency. If you consistently lie to your employees, that won't build trust. But if an employee goes to you as the leader of the company and asks a question, and then they go to any of your peers and ask the same question, they should get the same answer. And that answer should be as transparent as possible. And so once an employee feels like they can reliably ask a question and get a consistent answer from the company, then they start saying, okay, I can trust what's going to happen here. I know there's going to be consistency. I know I can rely on the leaders of this company to do what they say they're going to do. And that's really the first step in trust. So if you think about the two words, trust and safety, trust is your belief in what others will do, and safety is your comfort in interacting in that company. And you can't feel safe in a company until you can trust the people that you're working with. And again, that comes from consistency and reliability.
And one thing that I'd like to bring up, just Howard, in your experience in working with large financial organizations and so forth, is the ability to really establish the good trust in safety, or just back in when we were in Barclays and so forth, safety was like is not even a term, but trust is definitely part of that. So what are your thoughts about how that's evolved since back in the day, I guess you could say?
I think, when we first started out, Sam, it was very much, each person for themselves and very individualized, rewards and recognition. And I think it has evolved to more, we can get a lot further by focusing on team performance and not putting all of our coin on one person. If that person walks out the door tomorrow, then what? And that was an issue back in the day. The star would leave, and it's like, oh, we don't even have the bench strength to replace the person. So I think there has been an evolution, though perhaps a slow one in financial services, more so than other industries, to kind of move to the team concept. But yeah, there's a lot of power in having a strong team behind you.
Yeah, so I agree. As you're saying, Brian, the importance of the team is just enhanced in this new world environment where we're just working across with several different minds to build the best product and service for each organization. So that makes sense. But the next thing you were talking about is role clarity. So can you dive a little bit more and then understanding role clarity, especially in that team setting?
Yeah, so I talked about it being super important that people understand what they're supposed to do each day, and then even more importantly, how that affects the company overall, like how they interact with other departments. You talked about financial services, and there's a good idea of that is you have a loan originator who is taking the loan application from the client, and then it moves on to a loan processor who is processing documents, and then once the documents are all processed and in order, it moves on to the loan underwriter who underwrites the loan to finish the process basically before funding occurs. And each one of those people has a job to do, but they also need to understand how their job provides inputs for the next job. So if the application is not good, the processor has a really hard time processing the paperwork. That creates aggravation for the client. It's not a smooth process. And then once it gets to underwriting, a bad process or bad paperwork, bad processing turns into long underwriting times. And so you can see how customer service is affected. Well, if the employee only focuses on what they have to do, in other words, my job is just to process this loan, then they don't get the big picture. They only care about what they do, and they pass on their work, whether it's good or not, without any regard for how it affects the client, which is sad when that happens, but it does happen, and it happens in a lot of different organizations. What I did, and this is not in the book, but I'll give people a tool that I like to use. It's called a role clarity statement, and I like to do these workshops with my clients. And the role clarity statement includes 3 pieces. So the first piece is an action statement. The second piece is a connection statement. And the third piece is a satisfaction statement. And so you can put all of those in one sentence. And so what you say is I do this, which is I and some type of verb. I manage, I lead, I build. And then the connection is a sentence that says something like to support the company's goal of, and then you list out what the company goal, the way you are connected to the company. And then I like to include a satisfaction statement at the end, which is, which I find rewarding because, and then you list why you find your job or role rewarding in the company. Some people will struggle with that one because they don't like their job, but that's a telling thing too. So if you can create a statement that says, I lead a team of strategy professionals who support our goal of helping solve people problems for organizations. And I find it rewarding because I'm able to help a lot of people reach their full potential. So that'd be an example of how I would use a role clarity statement for my job here at Mercury Performance Group. It's a very powerful tool. And if you have everyone in your company create a role clarity statement, not only does it help them understand how they plug into the organization and what they're supposed to do, but they can use that as an elevator pitch for people inside of their company and outside of their company to help set expectations. So it's a great way to ensure role clarity.
So, Bryan, I just want to comment on this because I saw major challenges around role clarity just because our job descriptions and positions were so outdated. And we had 4,000 job descriptions at one of the healthcare system, and there was no way our compensation analytics department could or compensation department could fully keep up with the changes in the roles. So it was a tactical problem. It was challenging and required a lot of manpower to update the job descriptions. And today jobs are changing so fast. It's almost near impossible unless you work with a company like CompTeam that can really speed up that process and make it more quick and efficient. I also want to mention that in a career transformation mindset, as well as my strategic mindset, which I coach clients around strategy mindset. I was talking to a colleague just last week who was just laid off from the cable industry, which is the television cable industry, if you understand what that is. And so she was laid off and she's 48 years old. And the thing we talked about was defining role clarity about what position she wanted to apply for. And she was absolutely baffled. She's like, I've been doing data analytics for a cable industry, and that is going away, right? So how do I apply for a job I don't even understand exists? And so we pulled up in LinkedIn and Indeed and all the job classification boards, and it was very difficult for her to figure out where she fit in to the new job descriptions or the new job postings. And so we talked about strategically, how do we collaborate her skill set and help her transform how she's looking at new opportunities. Probably what your tool you're talking about would help her. However, it's the companies that seem from all these job postings that have not really come forward enough around technology and change, where even their job postings seem out of date. And so it's hard for applicants to really join a company with that lack of role clarity. So what are your thoughts about that and just the urgency companies need to get the right job descriptions and help attract those right candidates with the right skill set and help them coach and develop those new employees so they can succeed? So what's your thoughts about that, Bryan?
We could easily, Char, do a whole podcast just about this one topic.
Okay.
It's really it's really a little bit crazy for organizations because to your point, what they do is they say, okay, well, I have a job in the, to Howard's point a little while ago, my star player just left, and the star player left. And there's a bunch of articles out on the internet you can read about star players being punished by more work, right? So
yes,
if you want something done, give it to the busiest person in the organization. And so what happens is that their job expands well beyond the job description, sometimes morphing into a completely different job. And then the person leaves. And instead of sitting down and saying, what did this person do for us, right? Developing that role statement, what did this person do for us? They just post the old job description and then they're surprised when they can't find the right person for the role. They can't find anybody like Bob or Jane that was in the role before. And it's because they're advertising for the absolute wrong job and the wrong person. So I think it needs to be a regular exercise that people need to be responsible for their own job descriptions in some way with their supervisors. And it should not be an exercise that HR goes through, even with a skilled consultant like comp team. It shouldn't be something that HR goes through once a year or something like that, because then it's daunting. If you're adding something to someone's job, you should put it on the job description and keep that job description up. It should be part of the manager's role.
I agree. I think it needs to be quote unquote hardwired into that discussion in a one-on-one. Is I certainly saw, particularly in a superstar setting and a long-term healthcare organization I used to work with, we had employees that had worked there for 25 years or 13 years like I did. And certainly the job transformed, particularly in the 2000s with the technology coming in. I was the first one with a BlackBerry actually in my whole healthcare system. But, I totally agree. But it's difficult, I think, in the one-on-ones to really carve out the time and then assure that that feedback is getting to HR. So I don't want to get stuck on just this one topic, but
it's a great topic.
I see where a lot of strategy would come into play and really helping HR and leaders refine this.
Yes, role clarity is huge. Interestingly enough, just to transition real quick, we were talking about the next building block is shared vision and purpose. And a lot of people would say those are backwards. You should have trust and safety and then shared vision and purpose and then role clarity. And so when I talk to people, they say those should be reversed, but I don't agree. I think the person needs to know what they're doing, what they're responsible for, what good looks like, and then they can understand how it fits into the company's overall goal and purpose. And again, vision is just what they do and purpose is why they do it. And so that really helps with role clarity too. The reason you're doing this is X or Y, depending on which one you're talking about, vision and purpose.
Yeah, and I find that when we talk about role clarity, and then its impact on the vision overall, and what a person is really contributing to the organization. I agree with you. It's important for us to put that role clarity into that context, because it's, as you mentioned before in that role statement that you were talking about, really understanding what we do on a daily basis and how it impacts the overall organization's mission and vision is quite powerful and meaningful for a employee to experience. They know what they're doing on a daily basis actually makes a difference. What are your thoughts on that overall there, Bryan?
Yeah, I agree with it completely. I think, remember the three pieces of the role clarity statement are action, connection, and satisfaction. And so the connection piece is really the why of the company. Like, why am I doing this as an employee? How does it serve the company? And then the satisfaction statement at the end, which is rewarding because, and then ... That's the employee's why. Like, why do they do it every day? And I think both of those are very important for building shared purpose, right? Like the purpose of the company and the purpose of the employee. And that creates higher levels of engagement, which ultimately creates higher levels of employment as well. Or I'm sorry, of performance.
Right. And to the critics out there that are thinking that it should be in front, I can understand how the vision and purpose is something that should be communicated very clearly from our recruiting team and our hiring managers as we're bringing in candidates into the organization. Because basically, we want to make sure that people that are coming into the organization have that shared vision, that shared sense of purpose, and that intrinsic motivation that to achieve that overall. So that makes sense. And when you think about, do you often counsel your leaders on how they should be bringing or onboarding people in to ensure that they're aligned with that mission and vision?
I do. And as a matter of fact, if you'll indulge me, I'll give you another tool that you can use. It's a super easy one.
I love it.
I call it an employee alignment question. It's ridiculously easy, but if you teach this to your employees in your company, you will achieve levels of performance you didn't even think were possible, and it will always align with your shared vision and purpose. So I'm going to use Disney as an example here. So Disney World in Orlando has a motto, you could call it their mission, is the most magical place on earth. And so that's a pretty high bar if you think about a company saying, I want to create the most magical place on earth, and that's going to be Disney, Magic Kingdom, or the whole Disney property in Orlando. And so when they hire their employees, to your point, they bring them in, and I'm going to use the term indoctrination, but I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it in a good way. They teach people that the client is the number one goal of us being here. We're here to create a magical experience for our clients. So if I take that and I just flip it to the inverse, instead of saying Disney is the most magical place on earth, I can give an employee a question that just simply says, is what I'm getting ready to do, or is the decision that I'm making right now creating a magical experience for my guest? Which is just an inverse of the motto, turning it into a question, but it immediately gives you the answer because you know whether you're creating a magical experience or not. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Is, let's say it's the middle of August, it's sweltering, it's 100 degrees outside. You're a ice cream cart worker at Disney, at Magic Kingdom, and a mom with a young child comes up to you and wants to purchase a Mickey Mouse ice cream bar. So you have the exchange, you hand the mom the ice cream bar, they take 2 or 3 steps away from the cart, and they start opening the ice cream bar, and in haste, the child knocks the ice cream bar out of the mom's hand. It falls on the ground, and it's practically ruined since it's on the ground where millions of people walk. So now you're the cart person that just sold the ice cream, and you can see the person. They're standing just a couple of steps away from you, and so you have 3 choices really at this point. One, you can pretend like you don't see them. So that's the first one. I didn't see that, because if you don't see it, it didn't happen, right? The second is you could see them and have empathy, but you could also know that you're responsible for the contents of the cart. And at the end of the day, you should have either ice creams left over or money to replace the ice creams left over. So again, you do nothing. The third thing is you could reach into that cart and pull out another ice cream cone and go over and hand it to the mom and say, this is on the house. We're sorry that happened to you. If you'll just step to the side, I'll clean this up so no one falls on it. Now, if the employee is asking the question, is what I'm getting ready to do, or is the decision that I'm making creating the most magical place on earth, which one of those 3 do you do?
Yeah, obviously, you want to make sure that you're enhancing the guest experience and replacing that ice cream cone, right?
Absolutely. So when you create employee alignment questions, and that's just one example, and I know I'm using Disney as an example because everybody knows Disney, but you can create those for your own company. So for me, if someone says, can you do this for me as a client, all I have to say is does this solve people problems, and does it help people reach their full potential? And if the answer to both of those is yes, then it's something that I can take on as a company, and that's a client I can take on. If the answer to either of those is no, then I'm going to pass on the engagement. And so that helps me stay aligned with my own values, and my employees have the freedom to do that same thing.
That goes back, Bryan, to what you said about trust and safety. If that employee at Disney thought, well, if I could do this, but I'm going to get penalized for it, they're going to dock me the money for it, they're not going to be eager to do that.
Yes, I agree. And by the way, in my keynote and in conversations that I have with clients, I have another list of things that should be on the job description in addition to the role clarity statement. And one of those things is authority. What authority do I have as an employee in this company? And that should be listed right on the job description, to your point, Howard.
Good.
Yeah, so it's great to empower our people to be able to do the right thing and to achieve the vision of the organization. We need to make sure that we trust and give accountability to our people for that purpose. Yeah. And so I think that brings us right into those collaborative tools and practices. So how do you define that there, Bryan?
This one's really easy for me, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. The whole idea of this building block is you have trust and safety, you have role clarity, you have shared vision and purpose. Now you need transparency so that everybody knows what's going on. It's good that you know what your role is, but what about the other person over there? What's their role? And how do I know what they're doing? And how do I know what I'm doing is impacting them? And the best way to do that is to have ways to collaborate. So ways for departments. It's funny. I think a lot of business people have built workflows before, and a lot of workflows are intradepartment workflows. So the workflow only shows the department that is doing the work. And what I like to see is workflows with lots of lanes that show where the work moves from department to department, sometimes back again, maybe a QA process or something like that. And so collaborative tools and processes allow people to see that stuff in real time without having to do a bunch of research. So if I need to see what's happening with a file that I was working on, for example, back to my loan example, if I need to see what's going on with a file, I don't have to try to get in touch with the next person in the list. I can use these collaborative tools to do that. I can see where the file is. I can see what the notes are on it. And so that gives me the ability to do my job and give them what they need without necessarily having to tie up time in a phone call or a meeting, which is really helpful for the organization, both in terms of being more efficient, but also just being more friendly, right? When people can get the information they need easily, then they're more likely to go get it. If you make it hard, they'll just say, I don't really need that. I'm just going to make a decision and move on.
Yeah, that's really helpful. But when you think of all the collaborative tools that are out there that you see your clients use, well, which ones do you think are the most effective or most important classifications of those tools?
I think since we'll just call them categories, right? So I think you need to have some way to communicate in real time. You could use Teams or Slack, or at our company, we use Zoom Chat, and I really like that product a lot. So that gives us the ability to ask a quick question without having to schedule a meeting. And if you think about it, even a phone call takes a long time because everybody wants to exchange pleasantries. How are you? How are things? How was your weekend? And there's nothing wrong with pleasantries, but if you just need a question answered about a specific item so you can continue working, the real-time communication is important. And then the other tools really depend on what your role is in the company. So obviously project managers would want to use some type of project management tool. And then of course their stakeholders would want to use that too. So you might use something like Microsoft Project or Jira. And from a reporting point of view, talk about transparency and keeping people up to date. You might want to use something like Power BI or Tableau. So there's a plethora of tools out there, and AI is creating new ones every day, mostly using AI. So, I hate to list any specific ones, but hopefully that'll be helpful from a category point of view.
Yeah, for sure. And on the topic of just new technologies and AI, that brings up the next pillar that you have there as far as continuous learning. I think that the technology and the pace of business is moving so quickly that upskilling and reskilling is a regular part of the job now. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I think it's really an interesting issue for companies. If you think back to Microsoft, back when Bill Gates was doing his thing, their motto was a PC on every desk, and that was their goal. And then when Satya Nadella took over, as a matter of fact, you can read about this. You can read about this in the Vanguard Edge. It's one of the stories in the book. But when Satya Nadella took over, he said, there is a PC on every desk, right? Computers are almost ubiquitous at this point. So what do we have to do? We have to learn as an organization and shift and grow. And so they jumped into cloud computing and AI, jumped in the deep end, both feet, didn't even test the water to see if it was cold. They just jumped in. And their story has been remarkable ever since, including including a combination with OpenAI and ChatGPT. What's really interesting about it, and to talk about if you're not learning, you're dying, is Google says that they want to put the world's information at your fingertips. And so they built this search engine that spends a lot of time running ads. And that's really how they make their money, because they give away search for free. And then a company called Perplexity.ai, if you haven't used that tool, I suggest you do. It's amazing. They came in and basically redefined search. So if you're doing research, or if you want to find articles on something, or if you need to know an answer that's more than just here's a bunch of sites you can look at, Perplexity AI will, you could type a question in natural language and it will give you the answer. And not only the answer, but a bunch of sources for the answer and some other questions that you should probably ask. And if Google rests on their laurels, which they're not, but if they did rest on their laurels, companies like Perplexity could make Google go away. And you would have never thought that was possible in a million years, but there are companies out there trying to do it right now. So if you're not investing money in your employees as an organization, then you are dying because your competitors are. That's the main message here.
Yeah, and also I'd like to double underline what you just mentioned as far as these small startups coming into place in transforming the market and encouraging the large players to evolve and so just goes to say in our modern world, in our current environment, a single person can have a huge amount of impact on their practice, the world overall, just by really putting a good idea to work and understanding the gaps in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. This is where we get all the way back to building block number one, and it's Howard's point too he made earlier, which is when people feel safe giving their ideas and you help them learn and grow as an employee, you will benefit from their ideas. And sure, you'll have some failures. I love the whole quote about Thomas Edison. He didn't fail 10,000 times. He found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And if you're investing all that money and time and effort into your employees, they could have the next big idea. It could be the next Google, right? Or the next Microsoft. And think about the guy, everybody's heard the story of how they accidentally invented the glue for Post-it notes. And that person could be in your company. All they need is a little bit of help to grow.
Right. So let's go to the final pillar that you have there: collective rewards and recognition. One of my favorite topics, of course,
Yes.
as a compensation specialist.
Absolutely.
So what are the key pieces that you coach your leaders on there?
This one is real simple. You'll laugh when I say it, but there is no better investment, or no investment has a higher ROI than recognition in your company. And the reason that I say this is because a thank you with why you're saying thank you attached. You don't just say, hey, thank you for being an employee. That doesn't make any sense. But if you say thank you for doing this specific thing, and here's how it helped our client, our customer, our company, this other employee, and you're very specific about why you're saying thank you, it's free. It doesn't cost anything to do that. And the return on investment is infinite, because if you do that over and over and over again, first off, what gets rewarded gets done more often. I said that earlier. And so if you want people to behave in that way, right, to do those things that you're going to be thankful for, then make sure you say thank you for them so they feel rewarded and do them. And of course, from a compensation point of view, you have to pay people well. That's very important. But you also have to recognize them in other ways too, in ways that are meaningful to them. And that doesn't always mean payroll or benefits. It could be being recognized as a top employee on a team. But back to the first word in this, which is collective reward and achievement. Collective reward and recognition. Recognize your teams first, and then recognize the members on the team. And if you do that, you can do it in such a way that you're recognizing their contribution to the team, not their contribution necessarily to the company overall as an individual. And to Howard's point earlier, which I thought was brilliant, is if you have one rock star on your team and they leave, now you have no rock stars. If you have 5 people on a team and you can find a way to make them all rock stars in their own right and celebrate the way that they contribute to the team in their own special way and celebrate the team's success, then you've created collective reward and recognition. And that's the final, what I would call the capstone on the Vanguard Foundation framework. And if you have all 6 of those things together, you're going to have a company that does amazing things. By the way, John Kotter is a Harvard professor, written many books. He wrote a book about company culture. And one of the most amazing things of that book is they found, when doing the study, they studied 200 companies across a 10-year period, like not necessarily the same industry, but like size, like timing, like environment, like economy. And what they found is that companies who have a high-performing culture, have a purposeful, healthy culture, perform 600% better than companies who do not. So if you only need one reason from this podcast to go implement those 6 building blocks of the Vanguard Foundation framework, sit back and think about what your company would be like if you could perform 600% better than you do today.
Great points there. So I know, though, I really appreciated you taking us through those 6 points in detail and so forth. But for our listeners that want to learn more, what is the first steps that they should take? I mean, should it be going through your book or reaching out to you? What do you think?
So they're more than welcome to reach out to me anytime. My email address is Bryan with a Y, BRYAN .Howard @MercuryPG, like Performance Group, mercurypg.com. So they can send me an email anytime. You can also get the book on Amazon. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo. I mean, it's pretty much everywhere books are sold. But I'll make a deal for all of your listeners, is if you send me that email and you make the subject line Vanguard and you send me a mailing address, I'll send you one of these books in the mail for free. And then after you look at the book, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you about the things that you feel like you'd like to change in your company to achieve that 600% that John Kotter talked about in his book.
Great. What a great offer.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bryan, for your sharing your wisdom today. This is a great session. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Well, take care, everyone out there, and we look forward to you tuning in next week on the People Strategy Forum. Bye, everyone.
Brian. Bye.